Hi, good afternoon. We are going to look into Unit 1 of Adult Care Management Level 3. And what we do is we will look at each question separately and look at the aspects of those questions. When you are listening to it, you can see it as if you to use this to get some ideas, and obviously you have to refer the book and other sources as well. But use this lecture as a source to get some more ideas for you, and that will help you to write whatever you need to write. Okay, you can use some of the things that we are exhibiting in this in the PowerPoint slide as your subheadings and things like that. So it'll be really helpful in my opinion. Have a look, and obviously you will have your own ideas as well. Make use of your experience and ideas that you have, so that you can create a good account of the questions that has been asked. So I'm going to share the slides. It is part of the slide is belongs to the slide that we have used previously. And I'm just going to share the screen so that we know that it is the right things that we do. Okay, yeah. So the slides these are the slides that we're going to use, and it's Unit 1, which you have seen previously, Unit 1, assessment criteria, and it is about understanding why effective communication is important in the work setting. So that is a subheading, as I said previously, and the question for that is the candidate will be writing a short piece of work, identifying different reasons people communicate, explaining how communication affects relationship, and explaining how communication affects relationship in work setting and how communication can be used to manage challenging situation. This meets the criteria for question 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. Okay, so the idea is that we are going to take the questions into three parts, and different reasons for people to communicate, and how communication affects relationships, and in work setting how communication is used to manage challenging situations. So that question, how, is what you're going to say how it is going to, and how and reasons for people to communicate, and how communication affects relationships, etc. So you're going to specifically say what the question is asking you. Reasons for people to communicate to express their needs. So in health and social care, you work in a care home or a nursing home or in a supported living environment, and then there will be residents and service users who's going to say things to you, say that, and I want to have a cup of tea, or I want to have a cup of coffee, I want to change my pads, I need some personal care, I need a bath or a shower, I need to use the toilet, or I want to speak to my son, daughter, mom, dad, whoever that is. So people will express things to express their need to. And at the same time, communication is an important part of relationships. And say, for example, in a care home, you'll have relationships such as you are interacting, you have professional relationship with your colleagues, your management, and you have a professional relationship with your with your service users, and to develop this professional relationship, the way we communicate with our friends, relatives, or staff, our colleagues, etc., will have an impact on how the ability to communicate effectively, ability to articulate things, will have an effect on relationships. You can use communication to express your thoughts and feelings. So, to say that I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling a bit low today, I'm feeling happy, so what you thinking? I was thinking about some of the things that happened in the past, etc. So it allows you to express your thoughts and feelings, and people may communicate to show affection, to say that communication doesn't have to be um, communication doesn't have to be verbal. Most of the communication is using body language. So people may use body language to show their affection. So they may shake your hands, or hold your hands, or give someone a hug. That's all part of communication as well. So communication can be used to show affection. Communication, people communicate to inform about someone or something that the person has done. So people may use communication to say that this has happened in the past. He has done this to me. A service user trying to attack another service user, or service user showing affection to service users. etc. So people communicate to inform someone or something that the person has done. So they could say that I have done this, etc. as well. So that's all the main reasons why people to communicate. It is not exclusive to that, but it just gives you important information why people, what are the reasons for people to communicate. Okay. How does communication affect relationships? Communication affects relationship in work setting. That's the second part of the same question. Communication enables people to develop relationships. Bad communication will result in breakdown of relationships. So, so how does a communication affects a relationship? So if it's a bad communication, if you are too harsh on someone, if you continue to take if you don't give enough value to the person and the relationship, and you communicate using ridiculing them, that'll have an effect on relationship. um you know um not communicating well with doctors, nurses, social workers, relatives. So think as if you're going to be a senior support worker or a support worker, and then you have to communicate with doctors, nurses, social workers, relatives who may be coming with their own understanding about things, your colleagues, line manager. The Whatever happens, it can really affect relationship. It can affect the relationship in a positive way, or it can also affect the relationship in a negative way as well, depending on your ability to communicate. When you communicate, you have to think that, how am I going to communicate? Communication is a two-way process. You can communicate, you can say that this is how I communicate, but you may have to alter your communications according to situations as well. If you got a friend, then you communicate in a certain way, but that may not be the way you communicate with your parents or doctor, or your husband or wife, or that's not the way you communicate with the doctor. So each situation demands certain way of communications, and we have to understand what is the best way to communicate with people. When communicating with a person with the impairment, disability, or difficulty has to be taken into consideration. So if you do not take that difficulty into consideration, that may affect your relationship. So if someone has got dementia and the person takes a bit longer to understand things, if you do not give the person enough time to to process the information that has been received, then that could affect the relationship. Okay. The person cannot hear properly, the person cannot understand things, and the person cannot see things, all will affect the person's relationship, the person's ability to communicate. But when you do the communications, you have to make sure that has to be taken into consideration so that you can communicate in an effective way. So if someone cannot see, you may use an object or reference that can feel the object. Or if the person cannot communicate verbally, you may use pictures, object or reference, symbols, etc. If the person cannot hear very well, you may lower down to the person's eye level so that they can listen what you are saying. So they can read your lip movement so that they know what you're saying to them, although they may not hear it properly. And it's about how you say it as well. Okay, so anything can be said in different tones. So the tone of voice, or how you say certain things to certain people, can really affect the relationships as well. It's about what you say, but it's probably about how you say it. And obviously how other person is going to interpret it. So people can interpret a communication in different ways. If they take things in a positive way, it is going to be more positive. In all these cases, your ability to articulate things is really important. Most of the communication is body language, as I said before. This like being too friendly, crossing the professional boundaries, will have a negative effect. We have to be working. We are working in health and social care, and your role is as a professional, probably working as a senior care staff. And you have to keep your boundaries as well. You got a professional relationship with your residents, service users, their families, and your management and your colleagues. And if you break that professional boundaries, that may have a negative effect as well. Okay, so do not do not have two different relationships happening at the same time. You can either have a professional relationship or a personal relationship. But when you work in any relationship that you're going to have at a workplace is going to be professional. Okay, responding during conversation has to be clearly thought through. So you do not want to interrupt people when they're talking, and you respond, you think how you're going to articulate things as well, because if you do not respond in an appropriate way, if you're not able to articulate things in the right way, and you could be misunderstood, and that will affect your relationship with your colleagues. So that has to be taken into consideration. I think I've given quite few examples of what kind of impact, quite few information about what affects a relationship, what effect communication can have in a relationship. So you can use those aspects of that as your headings or subheadings actually, and then elaborate on it as well. Okay, so you can refer the book as well, that will give you more information. How communication can be used to manage challenging situations. So when someone is exhibiting a challenging behavior, you have to communicate with them really effectively, understanding what should we say, what shouldn't we say, how much should we say, etc. So one of the things is identifying the reasons for challenging situation. The person may be confused sometimes as a result of their impairment of dementia, mental health problem, learning disability, autistic spectrum disorder, etc. Sorry. So we have to understand that impairment and understand the reasons for confusion. When if a person is if a person is suffering from mental health issues, and they are confused as a result of it, and you may have to take that into consideration, because some of the things that you may say may have a negative effect on them. Same with dementia. People with dementia might be hallucinating. They may say things, and if you communicate with them when they're hallucinating, that probably doesn't have any effect on them. Okay, so and you have to bring them back from that particular scenario, wait and let them come back and calm them down, and then communicate the things that you need to communicate. So sometimes the families of the service users can be quite challenging because of their anxiety, and because they have left their loved ones in your care. And in that case, your communication has to be in a reassuring mode. So you reassure to say that, yes, he has been doing very well. These are the things, well, thank you for the things that you have done, and reassure them, and give them the right importance when you speak to them, so that they know that they're comfortable with leaving their loved ones in your care. A staff may not work effectively because of illness. So sometimes people may say that he or she is not working very well today, and she or he is a burden to this team because they are not pulling their weight. It may be because they're not very well that day, or they may have a personal problem, etc. So those kind of things, we have to communicate effectively to understand the reasons why the person is not able to perform in that case, and then bring them, support them, and then make them part of your team, where you will get more of a productivity from them rather than being just harsh to them. A professional, for example, social worker, may have different views regarding care provided. So you may disagree. So you may disagree to say that the social worker may say that, I think this service user should have 3 hours of one-to-one. And you may say that, no, I don't. Your thought process may be that I don't think so, because he needs more support than 3 hours of work. Then you have to think how you're going to articulate it. There's no point in saying that, no, I don't think so. But you may be thinking to say that the support that the person needs, and the amount of time that is taken to support those needs, and you prove that the person needs more support, rather than saying no to what the social worker has suggested. Please say, you can use C's of communication in the scenarios given above. So that is for you to write. So you have to be clear concise, correct, complete, and courteous, constructive, caring, and compassion. You can use the 6 C's to when you communicate, and you can see how that's going to have a positive effect on people. It's important to know that we need at least two people to create conflict. Um, so when someone is exhibiting a lot of challenging behavior, and if you're communicating with them, there may be times when you do not want to continue that conversation. Give the person a bit of time and space so that the person can calm down and think logically. This is particularly important when service users are having challenging behavior. Sometimes if they are really anxious and is exhibiting challenging behavior, if you continuously interact with them, then they have got something that is opposing them, which will create a lot of conflicts, and that may result in escalation of that particular situation. To take that into consideration, you may have to break away from it or withdraw from that particular situation and approach the person back when the person is more calm. Okay, have to understand the intention behind communications on all occasions. We know that people may say things, but actually they are saying something else, because you have to understand what the people are saying, and the intention, what they want, what the intention behind that request or behind that communication. For example, if someone is saying, are you doing anything at this point of time, that may suggest that they want you to do something for them if you do not have anything else to do. So the actual communication, I'm absolutely fine, would you like me to help you with anything? So that the ability to understand why a person says things, it is not to know, if it's not what they have said, it's the intention behind what they have said has to be understood. If they're saying, are you doing anything, it's not because they want to know if you are doing anything at all. They just want to see if you can be used for a different purposes. So that is what the communication is. You have to understand the intention behind the communication that has been made as well. Okay. So I hope you have got a good understanding about how communication can be used to manage challenging situation. It's about the articulation, it's about understanding, it's about your ability to give in a space, it's ability to understand why the person is showing that behavior at a particular point of time. Okay, thank you. And let's have a look. So what you have to do is you have to be calm, be supportive, be patient, listen carefully, and ask questions when required. So when you're communicating, you have to make sure, if it's a challenging situation, you have to make sure you're calm and collective and understanding the situation in a logical way. And you need to support the person, be patient with your approach, and listen very actively, which means you are understanding the verbal communication. You're understanding the body language of it, and understanding the exact intention behind it, and responding appropriately so that you get the right results, especially in a challenging situation. So challenging situation could be because of a behavior problem, it could be because of they're physically unwell, it could be because of a mental health issue. So you don't know that when you start the communication, but as your communication because of your approach and how carefully you analyze people, and the way you respond depends on how they what they actually requires. And listen actively essentially means that you respond to people when they say things. You are not there just hearing what they're saying. You are listening to it and analyzing it, and then responding appropriately. The unit number 2, in unit number 1, the section number 2 says, be able to meet communication language needs, wishes, and preferences of individuals. The candidate will be submitting a witness testimony showing how the candidate has established communication and language needs, wishes, and preferences of individuals in order to maximize the quality of interaction. So submitting a witness testimony means that someone else is going to write it. That someone else is going to be a senior or your manager, and the manager is going to say how you have established communication and language needs, wishes, and preferences of individuals in order to maximize the quality of life. So essentially what you're doing, you're going to maximize the quality of life by by saying by supporting your service user, you are going to the person who is going to give the testimony, witness testimony even, is going to say that. So you have maximized the quality of interaction after taking the service user's language, communication, language needs, wishes, and preferences into consideration. So so how have you done that? That's what they're saying, asking you to do. How could have done? What are the things that you would possibly expect that in the witness testimony of your manager? You have to submit this witness testimony separately. You have to in a different file, or yeah, as a separate attachment when you send this to me. So your manager may say that you are able to understand the unique needs of the person. So unique needs of the person means the unique communication needs of the person. So for example, if someone cannot really see, what you have done is, if you have bought the object of reference. Object of reference means that, if someone needs tea or coffee, you bring a tea jar and a coffee jar and a tea bag, and they will feel it, and then they will decide what to have. So object of reference can also be used when people cannot understand verbal communication, if they cannot see. So if someone cannot really hear you properly, you have lowered down the person's eye level so they can listen to you. So you say that, Mrs. B has been working with me for the last 12 months, and during this time she has established communication. So she had she improved the quality of the interaction by doing the following things. Is that, when someone was blind, she has used the object of reference. When someone couldn't really hear the person has lowered onto the person's eye level so that listen to them properly. Someone found it difficult to have more choices, so they were given one or two choices. You have used pictures, and you have used sign language. And you have modulated your voice, isn't it? Sometimes people, if you speak too loud, people cannot really understand you. If you speak really low, they cannot really understand you. You have made sure that the pace of your communication is appropriate for the ability of the person. I communicate after understanding the individual. So you have also understood that, so there may be cultural differences, there may be religious differences. In some religions, people may say that you cannot shake the hands of the opposite gender, and you cannot give personal care. And if the person belongs to the opposite gender, some people may want to have, as a result of the cultural or religious needs, they may only want to eat vegetarian food. So when this kind of vegetarian food is not that important at this point of time, but shaking hands and and the way you address people is quite important. So sometimes in some cultures it is seen as a rude behavior. If you communicate with some and calling them by their first name, etc. And you have received this information from family, friends, and the previous care organization where the person has been. So these are the things that you would expect your manager to say in the witness testimony. Okay, so that they're giving a good account that how good you have been in communicating with people's needs, wishes, and preferences after taking their communication needs into consideration. Okay, the next question is, and the candidate will be writing a short piece of work describing the candidate will be writing a short piece of work describing the factors to consider when promoting effective communication. That is question 2.2. And so factors to consider when promoting effective consideration is going to be surroundings. How is the surroundings? Is it too crowded? Can the person really understand you in that surroundings? Is it noisy? Is it full of people? What is the ability of the service user to understand? Service users and residents means the same thing. So I may use service user or residents from time to time as a reference to the group of people that we are supporting. So the ability of the service user or the resident to understand you may differ may be different in different circumstances. So you will consider that, and impairments that the service user may have, their lack of hearing, lack of sight, lack of ability to understand because of dementia, um, all those things, the impairments that people may have, will have definitely have an effect on communication. So you have to make sure that those things are taken into consideration. Mood of the service user. If the service user happy mood, is a person willing to listen, um, that will have a big impact on your ability to communicate with the service user in the most effective way. And when we say impairments also include mental health issues as well. If someone is suffering from mental health issues, that may impair their ability to understand things. Say, for example, if someone is um, suffering from depression, so you're speaking to them, it appears that they haven't understood it, and that's probably because of the depression they are not in a mood to listen to anyone or anything. So as a result of it, that impairs their ability. So we have to take those things into consideration. Individuals conditions such as mental health issues, dementia, learning disability, autistic spectrum disorder, speech impairment, dysphagia, or aphasia, etc., can also affect the other factors that has to be taken into consideration when you are when you are supporting people, and when you're trying to make the communication more effective. You say, for example, if someone is suffering from dementia, and obviously there is short-term memory loss, and may find it difficult to understand lengthy sentences. And the dementia, people with dementia also finds it difficult to understand people, or they understand people better in the morning on many occasions, not always. Okay, those kind of things have to be taken into consideration when we promote effective communication. So the conditions that the people have, the mood of the service users, ability of the service user to understand noise, surroundings like crowded surroundings, etc., may affect the ability to understand things better. Those are the conditions. Those are the things that you should consider when you are promoting an effective communication. So if the surroundings is too crowded, I will take the service user away from it. If it's noisy, I will make sure the service user is away from the noise so that the person can listen. If the person is suffering from a low mood because of depression, I will think, what are the things that I need to communicate? What are the things I do not need to communicate? Mental health issues, dementia, etc., will also take learning disability. All those kind of things will also be taken into consideration when you want to communicate with the figure. So, for example, someone has got a learning disability. I do not want to give a lot of information at the same time, because that may be difficult for that particular person to understand everything that you have said. So those are the things that you have to take into consideration. The candidate will be, the next question says the candidate will be observed demonstrating a range of communication methods and styles to meet individuals' needs. I will do the observation, come to you, see how your communication methods and styles to meet, how you have implemented the communication styles and needs to meet the needs of the individuals that you're supporting. The candidate will be observed responding to an individual's reaction when communicating. So I'll come and have a look to see if you are reacting to the needs of the people. So if you are observing the person and the person, it appears the person is finding it difficult to understand you, so you are rephrasing it and you are using different methods of communication to communicate, and how you respond, how you give them enough time, and how you look at their body language, and how you consider their answers before when you communicate, and changing your communication methods accordingly is what is going to be observed. But you do not have to answer those questions. You will be observed in your workplace for that. Okay, the candidate will write a small piece of work. Next, unit number, the section number 3, the candidate will write a small piece of work explaining how people from different backgrounds may use and interpret communication methods in a different way, and identifying barriers of effective communication. This meets the criteria for 3.1 and 3.2. How people from different backgrounds may use or interpret communication methods in different ways. And if you're encouraged to talk openly, then those people will communicate more confidently. Um, some religion and culture, there may be some expectations, and that communication will be interpreted according to their expectations. So people from different backgrounds respond to communication in different ways. Say people from a particular religious backgrounds may not want men and look into each other without a barrier. And the way you address people, we have said this before, how you address someone who's elderly may have to be addressed certain way, someone who is younger than you may have to be addressed certain way. A person with a speech impairment may use touch as a method of communication. So a different background, the person has got speech impairment, so the person is finding it difficult to express themselves, they may use touch to communicate. Please keep this in mind, that if you are a shy person, you may be in the UK, you may be seen as someone who is rude and doesn't speak in and arrogant because you're not communicating with people. Western cultures usually keeps the personal space. People from some countries, such as Italy and Greece, may show their affection by hugging, which may not totally inappropriate in some other cultures. See you soon. Sometimes people say see you soon in the UK. That doesn't mean you're going to see that person soon. It's just a way of saying that we wish that we're going to see soon. That doesn't really mean that you're going to see them soon. Should meet up soon shouldn't be taken for literal meaning. So sometimes people say we should meet up soon, and that sometimes doesn't mean that you're going to meet up soon. It's just a way of saying that we have enjoyed your company and we should meet up soon, but that doesn't mean they're going to meet up soon. So you can see that how different people from different backgrounds may interpret communication methods in different ways. And the candidate will be, the 3.3, 3.4 says that the candidate will be observed demonstrating ways to overcome barriers to communication using strategies to clarify misunderstandings. So I will be coming and observing to see that someone has got issues with their verbal communication. How you communicate with them? Are you using object of reference? If they want a cold or hot drink, are you showing pictures of cold and hot drinks so that they can choose the right drink? And if they want tea or coffee, are you bringing the tea and coffee to them, then enabling them to make that decision, because they cannot really say or communicate back to you verbally? Are you using pictures, symbols, sign language, etc. to communicate? When someone has got a communication difficulty, what are the strategies that you use to overcome the barriers of the communication? So overcome the barriers, maybe the person hasn't got a speech, a person hasn't got the ability to communicate verbally, or the person cannot understand lengthy information or a lot of information, cannot process a lot of information at the same time. So thinking about what are the barriers. Are you going to give them information in small chunks so they can understand each section of it, rather than having a lot of information, not being able to understand any of those information that you have given them? Will be observed. So you don't have to answer those questions by writing. The next question says the candidate will be writing a piece of work explaining how to use communication skills to manage complex, sensitive, abusive, or challenging situations. The next question is how to use communication to manage complex, sensitive, and abusive or challenging behavior. And that is 3.5. So you have to be empathetic. You're looking, when you say empathy, you're going to put yourself in that person's shoes and show a lot of empathy. If someone has been frustrated because they have been living in a care home, you have to understand that they're taking their anger at you or someone else because of their frustration not being able to be with their family. Body language, as I said previously, the 70% of your communication is by body language. So you have to have a really calm body language and making sure that you are not showing any signs of aggression or fear when you are faced with challenging behavior. So that calm body language will help you to make sure that you are calming yourself down and interacting in a positive way. You are able to analyze the person really well rather than being too expressive. Read person's body language. It's a good skill to have. Read person's body language. You may not say many things, but you have to observe them and think and understand what is going through their mind and what they are trying to communicate using their body language. Positive attitude breeds positive behavior, and so if you are positive with people, it's likely that you get positive response from them. But if you're angry at them, if you're negative, you're rude to them, then it is likely that you get the same behavior back. Focus on mentioning positive things, and that is part of positive behavior support. When people are calm and happy, you encourage them by saying things that are positive, the things that they have achieved, how well they have been doing, etc., so that they retain the same mood on all occasions. Inform people how well they have been doing when they are showing behaviors that are good. Reward good behavior and support people by informing how they can get out of a situation. So sometimes if someone is anxious or they're getting a bit agitated, they may have had this situation before and they probably have been able to get out of that particular situation. You can inform them that what they have done in the past and how good it has been, so that they are able to come out of that situation without causing much problems. The next question says that the candidate will write a piece of work explaining how to access extra support or service to enable individuals to communicate effectively. This means criteria 3.6. To access extra support, to enable individuals' communications effectively, you can speak to your line manager, speak to your issues to your registered manager who has got the overall responsibility, speak to your colleagues, and if you speak to your friends and family, speak to a social worker. Okay, so speak to a multidisciplinary team, which is a team of social workers, health authorities, speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, etc. So they can give you important clues and support, so to make the communication more effective. Speak to GP. Okay, so what I'm saying is that if you want extra support, say if I am a resident and I'm finding it difficult to communicate verbally, and you want to get the support of speech and language therapy, you can approach your line manager, you can approach your registered manager, you can ask your colleagues where to get the support from, you can speak to their friends and family, the service users friends and family. They may tell you how, if it has happened before, how he or she was able to come out of it. Speak to a social worker so they can make the arrangements if needed. Multidisciplinary team and GP. If you speak to GP may then refer the person to the appropriate specialist, and the appropriate specialist will be able to support the person with their communication needs. It may be an OT, it may be a speech and language therapy person, or it may be someone else. So these are the people that you could support. And when you write this in, please just don't write these headings, and you say that, so you can explain a little bit to say that I can speak to my line manager. My line manager can contact the GP or the specialist multidisciplinary team, and thereby we are able to get that extra support that the service user needs in regarding his/hers communication. Registered manager could do the same. The colleagues may be able to then, say, for example, if you're communicating with a colleague who has got a lot of experience, and then her experience or his or her experience may say that, okay, this person is finding it difficult to communicate effectively. This could possibly the reason, from my experience of working with this person for a long time. This could be the reason, and that could really help you as well. Friends and family will know the history, and they can help you with a lot of information. Please also note that people, the registered manager can write to refer a person to the multidisciplinary team by using a referral form, which is available for them to use as well. The next question says the candidate will write a piece of work explaining the purpose and principles of independent advocacy and when to involve an advocate and how to access advocacy services. So this says you're going to write a piece of work. So let's have a look. The purpose of why do we have independent advocacy and when to involve advocate and how to access advocacy. Independent advocacy works in the person's best interest when there is a conflict of interest. So if there's a conflict of interest and the independent advocacy, so if the care home says that this person needs more support and we need more hours for him, the family says that this person needs more support and we need more hours from him, but the social services says that this person doesn't need that many hours and we don't think the number of hours that we are providing to this resident is too much more than what is required, and then there's a conflict. In those cases then there could be an independent advocacy service who will be working impartially so that the person get the right support and the right number of hours for that support in this example. The advocates help to look everything from the individual's perspective, and they can help to empower the individuals to do their own things. Like if someone is not independent in paying their rent, then they can make them independent. Advocacy can suggest things like people getting empowered to sorry getting empowered getting empowered to meet the needs of getting empowerment individuals. They help the individuals to be able to more independent. As advocate can suggest that this person should be doing more things independently, should be doing the shopping independently, should be paying the rent independently, etc. So their suggestions can help the person to be more independent as well. The advocacy can be used to safeguard people from abuse. So independent advocates, say for example, if a resident is living at home and if there are concerns about the person's welfare, an advocate could be involved to say that the person should not be living at home. And if a resident is living in a residential care home or in a nursing home, and if the person's affairs has not been looked after by the staff and the management properly, then the advocate can make sure that the person is not living in that service any longer. To support the service users to get the right information, so the advocates can give the person the right information. So if they want to move from one service to the other, the advocate can give them the most up-to-date information so that they can make their own choice. It gives unbiased service and work in the person's best interest. It protects people from abusive circumstances, which we have already said. Okay, so the purpose of principles of independent advocacy, as well as the next question is when to involve advocate. Advocates could be involved when there is a conflict. So if there's a conflict between the care home and the social services, an advocate could be involved. If there is a conflict between the family and the social services, an advocate could be involved. If there's a conflict between the family and the registered care home, then an advocate could be involved as well. And responsible people. So for example, if the service user has got a son who is the responsible individual for the service user, and if they are not working in the person's best interest, if they are doing things not in the client's best interest, the resident's best interest, then an advocate can be involved so that they can be impartial and support the person in their best interest. Specific needs of the service user is not addressed. So any of those specific needs of the service user is not addressed, then they can hire an advocate to make it happen. When there's no one to work on the client's behalf, if there is a person with dementia and there's no one to speak on that person's behalf, then an advocate will be really, really helpful. When the person in question hasn't got the capacity and a decision has to be made, then an IMCA could be involved as well. So if someone hasn't got the capacity, no one else to work on the person's behalf. When we say the person, that means the resident, and IMCA could be involved. IMCA stands for Independent Mental Capacity Advocate as well. when the person is under community treatment order, under Mental Health Act, there should be an advocate to address things from the person's behalf. So that is the person with the mental health issue who has been taken away under community treatment order. An advocate will work on the person's behalf to make sure that the best interest of the person is protected on all occasions. So that is when to use the advocacy services. So the fourth point is be able to apply principles and practices relating to confidentiality. The candidate will be writing a short piece of work explaining the meaning of the term confidentiality. Can will be observed. And this 4.2 says the candidate will be observed demonstrating the ways to maintain and promote confidentiality in day-to-day circumstances. So you don't have to worry about it. You are going to be observed. The candidate will be writing a short piece of work explaining the meaning of the term confidentiality is the question that you have to address. What is confidentiality? Confidentiality means that keeping things in private. Okay, so confidentiality means that any information that you receive as part of your work will only be used for the purpose for which is given to you. For example, if you are given information about the person's mental health stage to support the person with their emotional needs, then that information has to be used to support the person with their emotional needs. If you're given information about the if you're given information about the person, if you're given information about the person to give them some physical support regarding their physical health, then that information can only be used to support the person with the physical health. As we said, meaning of the word confidentiality it means that keeping things in private. You will get information regarding service users and other things to deliver the service that you deliver. That is to provide them with personal care, to give the information to the doctors and nurses, and to support them with their emotional needs. The information that you have received for that particular purpose should only be used for the purpose for which it is received. And confidentiality means keeping things in private, okay, and making sure that when an information is released, you get the consent of the person, and only release the information as on a need to know basis. So if the service user says that, okay, give this information to the doctor because of this reason, you only give those information that you are expected to give for the right reasons, and you should not be giving more information that is required. Information private to the person remains private. So if there is an information that is private to the person, you do not go and discuss that with your colleagues or your friends and families, etc. The information private to the person remains to be private as well. Okay. The tension between maintaining individuals' confidentiality and disclosing concerns. People has the right to keep things confidential on all occasions. People may end up in an abusive relationship, and that they may want to keep things confidential. This is what happens when we've got people who's we have a conflict sometimes when people want to keep things confidential. So if there is a service user or a resident, the service user has been abused by a fellow staff or a different service user, and the service user is getting abused as a result of it, and that makes it quite difficult. So service user says that do not disclose it, and he is hitting me when I'm walking there, or he's doing this to me, or she's doing this to me, and I don't want this to be disclosed. Or the service user may say that one of the staff took 10 pounds, which was in my wallet, and she has taken it way, but I don't want anyone else to know about it. So individual has the right to say those things, but on those things, when there is an abuse, a potential for abuse, or an actual abuse happening, the confidentiality should be broken, and the information should be reported to the appropriate people. Okay, confidentiality has to be broken in these circumstances in the best interest of the person. So if there is please remember that if there is a potential for abuse, or if there is an actual abuse happening, and then you have to break the confidentiality and report it to appropriate people. That last point of reporting it to appropriate people is also important. And which means that the person or people that you're reporting has to be appropriate. Okay, a person or people that you're reporting has to be appropriate. That is the end of the session. Thank you very much, and have a listen to it, read the book, and answer those questions. Please remember that observation, can leave it. Reflective account means that you are reflecting on your own experience. If any of them says that witness testimony, which means your manager or your senior colleague is going to write about the things that has been asked in the question in a positive way about you. Okay, thank you. And see you in the next session.